Come on, let's do it. Come on, guys, let's go. Let's do it. Come on, you guys, let's go.
I'm vegan and I got my organically sourced.
Climate change. Open up your wallets to make weather change around the world. Climate change. Turn all of the lights off to save every boy and every girl. Climate change. It's last call for gasoline, so you won't need your car from here. Climate change. Let the children skip school. We'll be dead in 10 years. Yeah. United Nations knows what's best for me. United Nations knows what's best for you. United Nations knows what's best for me, and they need money. Climate change. If you deny the science, you'll be blamed for every hurricane. Climate change. Let's stop the big polluters, but be sure to never mention their names. So gather up your plastics, forget that China exists, and go to Starbucks all the same. Climate change, 'cause global warming didn't stick, so here's some 16-year-old with braids. Yeah. United Nations knows what's best for me. United Nations knows what's best for you. United Nations knows what's best for me, and they need money. Climate action now. Climate action now. Climate action now. For the planet, for the children, for the planet, for the children, for the planet, for the children. We need climate change. We need climate change. Change the climate now. Climate action now.
Right now.
We want climate change now.
Listen to Greta.
Climate change. Time for you to shut up, pay more taxes, and eat more bugs. United Nations knows what's best for me. United Nations knows what's best for you. United Nations knows what's best for me, and they need money. Climate change. Global warming didn't stick, so here's some 16-year-old with braids. Well, do you believe in science or not? You believe in science, don't you? Do you believe in science or not?
Greg Wycliffe and Climate Change. Obviously a parody song of Closing Time by Semisonic. Greg joins us on the show from Ottawa, where the million-person March for Children happened today, amongst other major cities and smaller cities all across the country. Welcome, guys, to Shadow at Night. This is Friday, September the 20th, 2024. The show is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, canadanosilver.ca, the immune gummies. Simplify your daily immune support with convenient and delicious Nano Silver Silverceutical Immune Gummies. Each serving contains powerful triple action Nano Silver, elderberry, vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D3, helps supercharge your immune system. Safe and proven Nano Silver works alongside your body's own immune system to help you stay healthy and strong for everything that life throws at you. CanadaNanoSilver.com. If you're looking for a retail location near you, you can find one all across the country. There are over 30 of them. Check the retail locations tab right here on the website. And if you would like to become a retailer of these awesome products, get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the contact tab at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.ca. And guys, one more thing. Let's not be spending our money in places like Shoppers Drug Mart, London Drugs, places that are attached to the cabal, attached to BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street. Let's keep it at home. Let's keep it with the people we know. Kevin and Anna, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. And again, you can order online as well. There he is. He's in Ottawa. It's Greg Wycliffe. And Greg, I think you're on mute, but if you could turn your mic on, we'd love to hear from you, buddy. You look sunburnt, man.
I got a lot of sun today, Shadow. Thanks for having me. It's been a while since I watched that music video. I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, you know, Maggie Hope Braun pointed that out to me today. She was on the show last night. She said, "Oh, you're having Greg on the show tonight." Well, here's the video. And I went, "Oh, yeah, right. That's funny." And I know it's 3 years ago, but I still got a kick out of it. I think probably watched it 3 times since 3 o'clock this afternoon, man.
I appreciate that. I put a lot of effort into that one, and yeah, I feel like the lyrics aged pretty well. You know, global warming didn't work, so here's some 16-year-old with braids. But yeah,
The best. Hey, listen, man, you're in Ottawa right now. I just want everybody to know, in case you guys, I'm sorry, we've got a bit of a delay, so there could be a little walking on each other here when it comes to our conversation. That's all right. We'll get through this. Greg is an online influencer. He's a freedom fighter. He is a man on the street interviewer. He's a comedian. He's a musician. He's a writer, a performer. He does all of these things. I've always been absolutely thrilled with the work you do, Greg, and the things that you bring to the freedom movement that, you know, lighten things up from time to time. I mean, you use your sense of humor in a good way to get the information out. And I think that's fantastic. We need that, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying all that. And someone was mentioning how I have a certain touch to use humor to break through to people. And I thought about it, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I am surrounded by indoctrinated people in my life growing up. Like my family, like pretty well every single family member, like friends from back home, they are all totally gone. You know, I hate to go like that far. Like, I still love these people. They're still part of my life, but they very much so, they buy into the programming. And if they don't buy into the programming, they're one of these apathetic, sleepy Canadians on the couch who don't really care. So just out of necessity, I've always tried to be a smart aleck. I've always tried to use humor and to be entertaining and to use, mockery and ridicule, and also be friendly to kind of try to illuminate what's going on. You don't even want to know, Shadow, how many times during COVID that I basically had to pull this passionate speech out of my behind, cornered at Thanksgiving by all my family members. Why haven't you taken it yet? And I was like, listen, I've been right before, like, it's the same reason I'm not going to be the first person to take this mRNA injection, is the same reason I'm not going to be the first person to take a trip to Mars or the first person to take a trip on a self-driving car. Okay, this is brand new technology, but and I often think, man, what about people who aren't a big meathead like me and can talk themselves out of this situation? I can only imagine, the turmoil that different family members had to go through when cornered like that by their loving family members who have been brainwashed by the CBC. So,
best line that you just delivered in the last 2-minute monologue there was, "Yeah, it's mockery and ridicule, but I do it with love."
Oh yeah, it's the same philosophy of Norm Macdonald. If you've ever seen Norm Macdonald, may rest in peace. He has a philosophy which is, if you're mocking somebody, you need to love them. If you're making fun of them, you need to really love and appreciate who they are. Otherwise, it kind of comes across as just kind of doesn't have a good feeling. The bad feeling is the way that SNL used to make fun of Alec Baldwin, used to make fun of Trump. It was just kind of like, crappy. Like, it wasn't really that thoughtful. You clearly just hate the person, and it's also not creative. Yeah,
I agree. So listen, you've got a brand new website out there. You've got a brand new documentary you're working on right now. I played a 10-minute clip, that one you sent me the other day. I played that on Wednesday night, so people have had a chance to sample that. And if you guys haven't seen that, go check out the Wednesday night show. You can't do it on Facebook because for some reason the playback from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday got screwed up. But last night works with Maggie, and tonight will work as well. If you want to see it, go to Rumble or X or become an all-access member at shantodavis.com. Tell us about savefreespeech.ca, because we all know how important this is.
Yeah, thank you. So, for people who think like us, you know that in the media, by journalists, by politicians, by even our own family members and friends will chime in with these smears, with these character attacks of saying, actually, you're racist, you're sexist, actually, you're a conspiracy theorist for thinking this way. And there's a whole system of doing this, of depersoning somebody or discrediting somebody through character smears, character assassinations, which then gets amplified by the media, which then gets amplified by politicians and repeated by politicians. Of course, the most famous one was Justin Trudeau. Do we tolerate these people? Do these people even believe in science? And this project, Save Free Speech, is all about exposing how this whole system works, first of all, and then also connecting it to, oh, wouldn't you know, the people who are behind all of these smears are also the people trying to pass this new bill, Bill C-63, which in my opinion would be the end of free speech in Canada. We can get into the details a little bit if you'd like, but in a nutshell, if, we're told that this legislation with massive loopholes won't be abused by far left liberals. Like, we're sure, don't worry, we won't be biased in the way that we enforce this legislation. And I call BS. And we can kind of get into what that is, but that's what Safe Free Speech is all about, exposing Bill C-63 and stopping this bill. But also at the same time is we're kind of free speech watchdogs, and we're also going after these far left ideologues who are pushing all this cancel culture, political correctness nonsense. And really, the goal is to not only stop the legislation, but to inspire Canadians to stop being afraid of these name caller bullies, to let everyone know that there's a whole system here. It's very easy to understand. It's very cheap tactics. And as a Christian would say, the devil knows no new tricks. The devil can only deceive and lie about you. And that's what they do over and over again. But once we kind of realize that that's powerless over us, as long as we just stand up and don't be afraid of their name calling, then we can really start to solve some problems in this country.
Yeah, this cultural Marxism that they're using, they tried it on Jennifer Johnson, an MLA in Alberta, just this past week. I'm not sure if you've seen that video. I found out, by the way, today through one of my connections in British Columbia that the trans guy who was putting her through that stress, what do we call it? A stress session? Struggle session.
Struggle session. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a heterosexual man, by the way, claiming female identity. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bill C-63, to enact the Online Harms Act to amend the Criminal Code, the Canadian Human Rights Act, blah, 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 blah. We all know what this is. They say it's supposed to protect children. We know exactly what this is. This is nothing more than the fait accompli. I think it's the final of their trio of censorship bills. The first one was C-11. Then there was C-18. Now it's Bill C-63. First reading is complete in the House of Commons. Second reading is in progress. They're going to have to go through consideration in committee. I'm not sure how long that's going to last. I know that the Liberals combined with the NDP still have the power to be able to force that through, even though the Conservatives could probably filibuster it. Then it's got to go through the Senate. It's got to go through a couple of committees in the Senate for a first and second reading. Third reading, they're not even close to this yet. So it doesn't look like they're going to have time to get this through. Then again, they've surprised us before with, it's amazing, Greg. Some of the time we sit back and think they're never going to do that. They're never going to do that. And then guess what? They do it. So you're right. We do have to stay on guard for this kind of nonsense. You are going to expose in this documentary that you have coming out, the Anti-Hate Network. You've done a little bit of work on that already with Karma Sad, the paralegal, correct?
So not directly. Karima Assad has put her iron sights on anti-hate in the past, and she did a fantastic expose called #HateGate, which in a nutshell, this report took Freedom of Information request documents from the RCMP and CSIS to essentially expose that the RCMP and CSIS did not think that Diagolon was a militia or any sort of threat. Despite that, Anti-Hate created a bunch of lies and smears saying that they were a militia and that they were dangerous. And then these lies were not fact checked by anybody. They weren't fact checked by politicians. They weren't fact checked by Marco Mendocino. They weren't fact checked by senators, House of Commons, members of Parliament, or the media. And they all just took these lies from Anti-Hate and they all just repeated them ad nauseum and made it true. And then that is a huge reason, or a huge part of the justification of invoking the Emergencies Act during the trucker convoy, because of lies from Antifa journalists that are funded by the government. And for some reason, despite this being out in the open, despite us having the receipts of this, which was well laid out by Kareem Assad with a report, they're still receiving government funding. They got over $400,000 in funding from the Anti-Hate Network, and their fingerprints are all over Bill C-63. And that's why, even if this bill doesn't pass or Parliament dissolves, the fact that this was even suggested is outrageous. We're supposed to live in a free country. This would not be a free country if even a fraction of Bill C-63 were to pass. And on top of that, the fact that this organization with these Antifa journalists are receiving government funding, also outrageous, also despicable. And I'm going to apply pressure onto the Conservative Party of Canada to say, defund these people. They bully your base. They bully conservatives all the time. They make our lives a living hell, because anytime we say something that isn't politically correct or isn't approved by a CBC talking point, we get called a conspiracy theorist, whatever it is. And part of the ticking heart of how this whole system operates is Anti-Hate and their lies, their half-baked truths, then trickling up into global news articles and then trickling up out of the mouths of politicians. And yeah, our job is going to be to expose all of this, to once again not only get these smear merchants out of the way, but to empower Canadians to start fighting back. People are tired of the political correctness,
Yeah. Well, the cultural Marxism, I mean, there's so many things going on all at once. I mean, Maggie Hope Braun was on last night. We were talking about ICLEI and the Partners for Climate Protection and how many municipalities they're in across the country, over 500 with the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goal plans. And now cities and municipalities are starting to adopt, or at least trying to start adopting these plans. People are standing up and fighting back, because I do believe that they're starting to figure things out a little bit. We also have the transing thing going on, Greg. There's so many things going on. We had a great conversation on the phone the other day about this, and maybe starting to think that all of this in front of us, never mind the football and the hockey starting pretty soon, that this stuff is the bread and circuses, the distraction.
Yeah. I mean, I have totally been there. It's been unhealthy, Shadow. I'll be on conservative Twitter. I'll be looking at my YouTube feed or my Rumble feed, and I'll be looking at Rebel News homepage, and I'll be overwhelmed and scared from what I see happening constantly. You just see more and more globalist type policies being passed, more and more weird, degenerate culture, whether it's crime, whether it's, babies having babies, it's so much madness, and it's overwhelming. And when we're fearful, when we're afraid, we can't even think straight, let alone make a plan to try and rectify things for the future. So one of the major things I encourage people to do is to, check yourself. If you're overwhelmed with fear, like, you are not doing yourselves any favors. And I see a lot of people online who, maybe they want to make a quick jab here. They want to attack that person quickly here. What is the long-term plan? Because the enemies, the big Goliath that we're up against, it's been a long time coming. They've been planning this for a long time. And we are not going to be able to solve this problem with some sort of short burst of energy. I like to tell people it's not like Star Wars, okay? This isn't Star Wars. This isn't we get in our X-Wing fighters and we shoot one missile into that little hole, and then the Death Star blows up and we all go home. No, It's not that simple. It's not just one little shot. It's going to be it's going to be work. It's going to be work. And I'm putting my money where my mouth is by starting this organization, savefreespeech.ca, and just research on this bill and, keep my eye on these groups and start to educate people. Instead of just making all these silly videos, I'm going to take the time to actually calmly break down the information, educate people, make it entertaining, persuasive, spend a bunch of money on nicer music to put on my YouTube videos and really try to persuade people and show them really what's going on and to be part of the solution in the long term, because that's what it's going to take. It's not going to be solved overnight.
You're right. It's interesting, though, because people do want to stay informed. They know they can't go to the left-wing corporate media for that kind of information because they know they're only going to get one side of the story, if they get the story at all. And so they may go on to X, Twitter, and it's a cesspool. It's a cesspool of manure. And, I'll personally, like when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do, I grab my phone, right? I go, oh my God, I've got like 100 new emails and all of this. But I go onto Twitter and I get angry within the first 60 seconds I'm on there because all I see, liberal. And it's like, just put the phone down, take a deep breath, go for a run or something. Go hit a heavy bag at the gym or something like that, because you got to find a way to clear your head. What do you do to get away from it?
On a good day, I don't check my phone right away in the morning. On a good day, I'll try to get outside, get some fresh air, do a bit of exercise, drink water. I always try to do those things in the morning. But along with that, I think it's because it's true, especially for what we do. We do have to keep up to date with the news. So we do have to, wade through the toxic sludge that is the news feed and pick some things out and like, oh, I guess I'll talk about this atrocious nonsense today. And look at this wart. How long has that been growing? Is this mold? What is this? I guess I'll have to talk about this too. But I think the key is to check yourself. When you're kind of getting all tense and you get that feeling of being overwhelmed. Catch yourself and be like, you know what? Maybe I just need to put my phone down. Maybe I just need to get off Twitter. And this project, Save Free Speech, has been great for me because it's giving me a job to focus on. They say that, hard work sets you free. And it's like, okay, sure, all this stuff is going on, but I need to keep my eye on the ball. This is what I'm going to do. People are funding this documentary, so I better, make sure that I honor people and their donations and make sure that I deliver what I've promised. So I'm able to more easier push that aside and then laser focus on the one topic that I've chosen, which is free speech. So everything that I look at now, it's through the lens of free speech. How does this relate to the arguments that I'm trying to make? How does this relate to the content that I'm trying to make? And how can I more easily, educate or make the, expose what's happening with Bill C-63 and, the smear merchants that need to be exposed and really prop up a lot of the philosophy of Justin Trudeau,
what's interesting, when I think of everything that we are facing right now, we had this conversation the other day as well. I mean, we've got the climate change, we've got the transing, we've got the World Economic Forum. Now we've got Bill 293, which is the World Health Organization trying to take sovereignty away from, 193 countries around the world. There are so many things and so many good people working on all of these fronts. How did you pick this one? How did you land on this one? Did you just spin the wheel?
I'm not going to lie. It was on one hand, it's logical. And on the other hand, it's selfish. First, it probably came the selfishness, which was, if this bill passes, I'm not at the top of the list, but like I'm probably near the top. Like I'm up there on the list in terms of the people that the government would target. And I associate with members of Diagolon and Jeremy McKenzie, and I know those can be very divisive figures, but I care about freedom no matter what. I believe in I will defend them even if they're saying controversial things like that. Like I still believe in that. And unfortunately, a lot of people have kind of cowered away from actually standing for that sort of catchphrase. But selfishly at first, it's like, well, I'm going to be near the top of that list of people that they would target with this bill, A, and then B, it's I've seen all these bills pass before. The people say it's not going to pass. We saw Bill C-18 pass. Now we can't get news on certain websites. We saw Bill C-11 pass. Now the government is going to help influence our algorithms. Two things we don't need. In one case with Bill C-18, where Meta / Facebook and Google called their bluff. And they said, yeah, your legislation sucks, Canadian government. We're actually not going to show the news anymore. Objectively poor legislation, yet they could easily pass through Bill C-63. But the second reason that I landed upon fighting this bill is, how are we going to talk about any of these other issues if we get our tongues ripped out? We can't. So
right. I mean, I believe that it's something I say. I go, Maggie Hope Braun's got her thing going on with Kickley, and I believe it's very important that we maintain the right to own property, and they're trying to take that away from us, clearly. But the free speech thing is equally as important, so I'm glad we've got so many people, good people, smart people, working on these different beachheads, because if we don't, we let something slip past the goalie here, they're going to get us one way or another. So we do have good people focused on pretty much all the areas we need to focus on right now. You've looked at the bill. You've seen Bill C-63, obviously. What are some of the penalties? What would be a crime according to this bill? And then how can you be punished?
That's a great question. We're still working on the quintessential video on this topic. However, I sent you a link in the chat there because we've laid out the worst of the worst on our website. You can go to savefreespeech.ca /C63, scroll down a bit, and there's a bunch of drop down sort of explanations with screenshots from the bill. But essentially, we do not give this bill the benefit of the doubt when analyzing it whatsoever. We don't give this bill the benefit of the doubt whatsoever when analyzing it. So we look at the lowest possible threshold to charge somebody with something. Life imprisonment for attending a protest. The example we use is if you attend a protest that opposes mass migration, for example, you could be charged with mischief, as we know. And with Bill C-63, there's a standalone hate crime charge that a Crown prosecutor could add to any charge. So if you have mischief, and they decide, you know what, Shadow, we actually think that your mischief was motivated by hatred. That's liable to life imprisonment now. You can see the screenshot. It says hate crime, offense motivated by hatred. The last sentence says liable to imprisonment for life. This is actually in the bill. As I was doing the research, I was like, I can't believe it's actually that crazy. The next one's also insane. Go to jail for intensely disliking someone. This one's crazy. So they're broadening the definition of criminal hate speech to include detestation and vilification. So if you detest and you vilify the Maple Leafs, no, if you detest and you vilify an evil person, a murderer, a sexual predator who preys upon children, which I think is totally legitimate to detest and vilify. Technically, according to this bill, you could be charged and go to jail for 5 years for intensely disliking someone, or detestation, vilification. Because the thing is, if you look up detestation, the definition is intensely dislike. Intensely dislike.
This is something that I was joking about when I talked about this about a month ago, and I did bring up hockey teams or football teams. Like, what if a fan of the Calgary Flames pipes up one night on Twitter and says, I hate those freaking Oilers, or I hate that Connor McDavid, or Leon Draisaitl, or whoever happens to be on the Oilers, right?
Sure.
So could that be construed as hate speech, as detestation? And if so, would you have a cop knocking on your door the next day?
And of course, the people presenting this bill say, "Oh, no. Of course not, Shadow. That would never happen. We would never do that." But then, why this upsets me so much, and I'm even seeing lawyers give this, have the same take. Oh no, they would never do that. Are you aware? And to these people, I would say, are you aware of what happened after the trucker convoy? A group of people, because of their political opinion, got the book thrown at them for their opinion. They found loopholes. They found reasons to charge this person, to charge that person, imprison this person, get this person tied up in legal battles. And we're supposed to believe that this type of legislation wouldn't be used for the same thing, wouldn't be used to persecute, political opposition to this ruling regime? I'm not stupid.
Absolutely.
Like, of course
Absolutely,
it would be used for that.
Yeah, I mean, and because they need to make an example of somebody so that the rest of the country falls in line, right? I mean, that's the whole thing with Tamara Leach and Chris Barber. That's the whole thing with the Coots guys. Anybody who has been, on trial for the last couple of years. I mean, on mischief charges. Let's be real. This is not about putting them away for the rest of their lives. This is about scaring everybody else into compliance. House arrest, if someone fears you might post something hateful in the future. So now we're talking about Minority Report?
We are. You emphasize the correct word there, very appropriately, Shadow. If someone fears that you might post something, all they have to do is one Canadian citizen can make an argument to the Attorney General that someone might post hate propaganda in the future. It could be, and then they'll essentially put you on a potentially 2-year peace bond, which can include house arrest, curfew, ankle monitors, drug tests, surrendering your firearms. This is for not even doing anything, just somebody making the argument that you might do something. And the thing that you might do is not even, it could be posting like a hateful meme. Yes, really. And this is what I mean. The fact that they're even presenting legislation like this is so inappropriate and disgusting that, I mean, we can get into the Conservative Party in a minute, but it is such an insult to what Canada is supposed to mean in terms of freedom. And it is such a, undermining, of course, of our charter of rights and freedoms. There's just so many loopholes in this thing. You could drive a truck through a convoy of trucks through the loopholes in this piece of legislation, and we're supposed to believe. Arif Virani, when he presented this bill, said, "Oh, don't worry. Like, we'll appoint people who are fair when we do this."
Arif Virani, okay. Yeah, of course. So we don't know which unelected bureaucrats are going to be the ones making the decisions to throw away the key. For 20 years, throwing us in jail, or I understand the fines are pretty bad too, up to what is it, $20,000 or $60,000 or something. And the person that reports you never find out who that is.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We actually don't even have the fines in here yet on this webpage yet. This was just kind of first pass through of like the most egregious things, but you're right. There are fines, for the anonymous reporting of hate speech. That's right. So this was also called Section 13 of the Human Rights Code in the past, where, didn't even have, like, it's the same thing as the detestation, the intense dislike. If you intensely dislike somebody, someone can complain and say, "You hurt my feelings. This guy hurt my feelings. Can you, drag him through a human rights tribunal and then fine him for a bunch of money and then give me a chunk of that money?" This would so obviously be abused. And we already know this, Shadow, because it used to be in law and it was abused by the same person. This is real. The same person over and over and over again. And guess what? This person is a board member for the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. Isn't that interesting? So,
talking about Bernie Farber?
No, but it's another person who is on the board. Bernie Farber has his own. Matter. Well, yeah. I mean, we've been doing our research, and Bernie Farber is. Let's just say that we have his number. We're doing our research, Bernie. So, hi.
Excellent. Hi, Bernie.
Hi.
So the way they've been rolling it out, the Liberals to the left-wing corporate media, is, hey, this is all about protecting kids online. We know that Mark Zuckerberg is not doing a very good job of making sure kids don't see bad content, stuff that's going to get them in trouble, or maybe old people from being fleeced by some con man online. So that's what this is all about. You've got this section. It says, won't it protect kids online? No.
To be fair, I need to fill in this section more. There's honestly so much to say why the answer is no. The most obvious one is all of the things that they say they're going to stop are A, already illegal, B, already totally heavily censored by big tech platforms anyway, And number three, or maybe the even bigger reason, they say that they're going to protect kids from sexual exploitation. This is the liberal government saying this, that they're going to protect kids from sexual exploitation. The same liberal government that champions the pride parades where there could be children. And they also champion the very questionable gender ideology in schools, which quite literally, in some cases, have pornographic material in the library, literally exposing kids to sexual content. But this is the government that wants to protect your child. That's obvious, another obvious one. But if you do even more research, it gets even weirder. And that being said, they might try to bring this up when they're trying to push through the bill. But there is a massive big tech company that Arif has not mentioned, that the Liberal Party hasn't mentioned. It's called Pornhub. Okay. They're actually headquartered. They're headquartered in Canada. They're headquartered in Montreal, and they have been guilty of being associated with human trafficking. It's bad. If you really cared, if you really wanted to stop this problem and protect kids from sexual exploitation, you would be naming Pornhub. You would have specific legislation toward Pornhub, but they don't. And guess what? This is more research that I actually need to kind of complete and create into a video and put it online. But there already is a relationship between the Canadian government and Pornhub where they kind of go into more details to try and hold Pornhub accountable for problems having to do with this. And it's actually more specific. But when you look at Bill C-63, it is so broad. It is so it's very clear that it's only just part of the thin veneer of the Trojan horse. One clear example of this.
Go ahead.
I was going to say one more clear example of this, just to kind of drive it home. They identify 7 types of harmful content online that they're going to take away and to protect kids online. 2 of them have to do with sex or pornography. The other 5 of them are like hate speech, terrorism, bullying. Like everything else has to do with hate speech. And then only like the 2 of them of the harms are like, things that are already illegal and already quickly already taken down off of these mainstream big tech platforms anyway. I mean, sorry, one last thing. It's sort of related. Like the people who wrote this legislation are so ignorant to how the internet even works. They say, hey, yeah, these big tech platforms, we need a way to be able to report stuff. Are you kidding me? Everybody look on their screen right now. You look for the dots. Look, you can report everything. There already is a report button for the same types of things that are inappropriate, pornographic, whatever. Like that already exists. And these arrogant, obnoxious members of parliament are presenting this legislation as if that doesn't exist and that they're somehow going to be better than big tech at doing this.
Well,
I mean, should we talk about the CRTC?
Control.
But
it's government control, right, Greg? I mean, they want the liberals, because of the World Economic Forum and all of their associations with the United Nations. They're just marching to the beat of Klaus Schwab or whoever is controlling Klaus Schwab. The puppet strings go up very high. But what they're doing is they're trying to gain control. It's all about control. What about the mass immigration into our country that nobody ever talks about, because all we ever hear about open borders is in the United States? But what we're hearing lately, anyway, in the last couple of months, is that they're concerned about the northern border as well becoming a human trafficking zone, notably through British Columbia and Quebec, based upon what happens online. And I'm wondering if that has to do anything at all with this. When we talk about human trafficking, Canada's bad for it, and I understand that British Columbia is probably the worst province in the country, and maybe one of the worst spots in all of North America.
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point, which is the even darker, more nefarious perspective on this bill, which is it would actually help protect sexual predators or criminals who are doing criminal things online, because people might expose evidence of a sexual predator. They might expose evidence of, fill in the blank criminal behavior. And now, oh, no, sorry, that's harmful content. You need to take that down. Facebook or Google or whatever. And now all of a sudden evidence has gone missing. The story trails off. Nobody follows it because they're making the information disappear online. You're absolutely right to identify that as a potential abuse case, or even if you're a sicko, you're a sick, depraved criminal exploiting Canada and human trafficking. It's a benefit, right? It's a huge benefit to this bill that you can be insulated by these corrupt bureaucrats who are trying to help you get away with it, so they can, fill in the blank, keep your trafficking network alive. Scary thought.
Definitely scary. I want to come back to savefreespeech.ca in just a second, because I know that you're taking donations to complete this documentary, hoping to have it out by early next year. And again, you guys, if you haven't seen the first 10 minutes of it, Greg sent it to me the other day. I put it on the show on Wednesday night. Is there another place people can see this 10-minute segment?
Yeah, actually, I changed around the homepage for you. So if you go to savefreespeech.ca, it should be the video right at the top. Canada's war on parents, which essentially there's a number of topics where free speech is already a huge issue, and there's a whole system of censorship and suppression and smearing people's reputations. And the big one is parents who stand up for their kids, parents who stand up for the gender ideology. If you're effective at this, you systemically get called a transphobe, homophobe, and anti-hate does this, the media does this, Antifa does this, journalists do this. Shout outs to Rachel Gilmore. But it's already in place, and the fact of the matter is, Bill C-63 is just the perfect toolkit for these same institutions, these same people, to not only just smear your reputation. Oh no, now you're caught up in a legal battle because of what you said. Oh, now you're caught up in being anonymously reported because of what you said. Oh, now you're going to be put on house arrest because of what you said. It would just be so convenient for these control freaks who are really, really want to control people's thoughts and feelings to be only that of the far left. And yes, you're right. We are working hard on a documentary. We have an award-winning filmmaker that it's going to expose all of this. It's going to tell the whole story. And I'm really excited for it. I'm really excited for it because people need to hear this story. And I think it's going to go well beyond into America as well, because we are going to be submitting it to film festivals and everything. It's going to be a legitimate documentary. So.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up all of that stuff, because I think what Trudeau, and they're talking about doing the same thing, like we've seen the censorship in Brazil, they've banned X there. The politicians in the European Union, in the UK, they're knocking on people's doors for memes, and in France it's happening as well. Gavin Newsom
and sorry, they are arresting people in the UK for voicing anti-immigrant sentiment, and they're using a bill that recently got passed that has something to do. It's called like online harms bill. It's like one word difference than what Bill C-63 is. So people are alarmist. That won't happen. It's literally happening right now in the UK already.
Don't they have, this would be, I'm sure you've looked into this because you're doing the documentary on it, and you've obviously done tons of research on this. Would this not be, and I understand this might sound like a foolish question, because how many times have they breached the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in the past 4 years and just gone, whatever, and then wait for the court challenge that comes maybe 3 years later? But would something like this Bill C-63, would this not be an impediment to our free speech, which is definitely in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms? And it wouldn't be covered under Section 1 because there is no emergency going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely, it would, of course.
Challenge it, I guess, is my question. Would it be challengeable in court?
I don't even like this line of thinking, because how about we just stop it from passing? How about we just don't even have to deal with that? And the other thing too is, I'm just so cynical these days, Shadow. The dust hasn't even settled from the trucker convoy. There's still these open-ended, dragging on cases, basically for people who are just standing up for fundamental human rights. And to answer your question, yeah, probably you could make a case of this is a charter violation. How much money is that going to cost? How much time is that going to take? Let's start by honoring what it means to be Canadian, and start really being detested by these politicians and just like not accepting it anymore. And actually, maybe now's a good time to talk about the Conservative Party, because They claim to be pushing back against this bill by making their own bill about online harms. We're going to push back. And this is the bill that the Liberals should have written. Why this upsets me so much is because it is a terrible negotiation tactic. If you were to actually be pushing back against Bill C-63, which you should be, because the fact that it's even being presented in this way with such a violation of our charter rights is detestable. But actually pushing back would be saying, how dare you even present this atrocious bill? You're a disgrace to democracy. By the way, we must repeal Bill C-18 and Bill C-11 as well. That would be pushing back, because it would be saying this piece of legislation applying to the internet is so terrible. You guys suck so much. By the way, we can't even get news on Facebook and Instagram because of your poor legislation also having to do with the internet. So let's repeal that as well.
Let me ask you, have you heard anybody, and I the reason I ask is because I haven't, outside of our circle of people, I have not heard anybody say, hey, how come I can't share news on Facebook anymore? Like just some average normie. I've never, ever heard anybody ever complain about that, which scares me, to be honest. I mean, what is wrong with the people in this country?
Well, that's a really great point. And the term is the totalitarian tiptoe. Because even if Bill C-63 passes, we wouldn't notice it right away. It would be this insidious thing where slowly but surely, like the people on the fringes who maybe don't have a big platform, they slowly get picked off and they slowly get silenced. And like little by little, people just kind of get picked off, and normal people don't even notice. They're just walking into the LCBO, their Shoppers Drug Mart. Everything is fine. It doesn't affect my life, Shadow. Well, the news told me that person was actually bad. The news told me that person was actually a villain. Okay. And in my nice little world, like it's undisturbed. And just to answer your direct question there, it's because they haven't noticed. It's because they're not paying attention. And it's done this way by design to make it not seem noticeable, but slowly but surely the temperature goes up. We start to boil more and more, and by the time the majority of people realize what's happened, it'll be too late because they won't have any rights left. But that's another reason why I want to really make this like a stake in the ground, to be like, this is a flashpoint. This needs to be the TSN turning point. Okay, because like look what they're trying to do in the future. Let's start to reverse this and actually start to use our freedom of speech. Because the other thing, aside from all this like legislation talk, there's so many fearful Canadians who don't even want to use their freedom of speech. And now's the time to be like, hey guys, let's start using it or else we will lose it.
It's interesting. I think maybe if they barred us from sharing a story about a hockey score in a game between the Leafs and the Canadians one Saturday night, then people would start to get up in arms. Maybe, right? Well, they're not let me share this story. The Leafs beat the Habs last night in overtime. What the hell's going on here?
Oh, you're right. You're I hate how right you are about that. It is so true. You see it everywhere. People only cared about COVID when they canceled basketball games. That's the only time that people started to pay it. Well, they canceled the NBA game. Oh my God. Maybe this is actually something real.
Let me ask you, we're going to come back to Save Free Speech at the end and how people can donate and what exactly your plans are and talk about a timeline there. You're in Ottawa today. Have you been back since the convoy, or is this your first time?
You know what? This was my first time live streaming on Parliament Hill since the convoy. So that was an interesting experience. I have driven through Ottawa. I was at a PPC conference last month. Yeah, in August. But this was my first time actually being on Parliament Hill. And it was quite the opposite because, it was sunny out today. It was hot. But it was interesting to be back there. I really don't know what else
was it like. What was it like? I mean, was it haunting?
It was a little bit haunting to be walking up Wellington Street and to be like, the last time I was here walking on the street, there was trucks everywhere. Or I guess the last time I was here, I was being shoved by police officers, and it was such a stain on our history. So yeah, I guess it was a little bit haunting, I guess, to walk back through that and to like be in the exact same street corner and be like, I remember what this street corner looked like during the convoy. It was totally different from now. I gotta say though, it was inspiring because although the group that came out on Ottawa today wasn't a million people, you know, it might have been like 500 to 800 or something like this, but everyone there had a lot of conviction and a lot of fire and a lot of passion. And everybody else who, you know, the tourists and like, you know, the Ottawa people, they really don't have that. They're just going through the motions, you know, they're just getting their pension. And that really is our strength. It's not diversity. It's our fire. It's our passion. It's our conviction for truly wanting to honor what this country is all about and to truly fight for it and make sacrifices for it. And I'm optimistic for the future because there are people like myself and the person you had on earlier this week who are starting to kind of buckle down and focus and take that passion, take that conviction and start to build something brick by brick. Not just a short spurt of energy, but starting to build something that is going to carry us into the future and really going to oppose all of the organizations that are attacking us. You know, our political enemies.
Are you seeing our group get bigger? I noticed a sizable change in the last, I'm going to say 8 to 9 months. I'm starting to see a lot of new names and a lot of new faces coming to the show here on all of the different platforms. And this is it's a surprise sometimes because you feel like, okay, we've hit our limit, which is kind of a sad thing. But then I see all these new names. Like there's a name I have never heard or seen tonight. There's a Marie in the comments right now. Devon Harper is watching tonight. How you doing, Devon? Good to have you with. But there's all kinds of new people that are flooding in. Have you noticed that out in the GTA?
You know, I have because the quality of life continues to dwindle. And I love this quote. It was, you may not care about politics, but politics cares about you. And one of these days, politics is going to come knocking on your door in some form. And it's going to disrupt your life and you're going to start to care because you're going to be forced to care because it's going to disrupt your worldview of, oh, I thought everything was hunky dory here. Oh, maybe this is corruption. Maybe this is dishonesty. And slowly but surely people are trickling in, I think, simply because of that, whether it's the cost of living, whether it's, the mass migration, the housing crisis, the job market, and I think a big one, of course, is the gender ideology in schools and how patently absurd that is, and how there's just no balance in conversation on the television whatsoever.
Let's talk about that. You were at the 1 million person march in Ottawa today. That's why you're there. And you said 500 to 800 people. Were there counter protesters out? I know that Ottawa's filled with them.
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't that bad. There was in the morning, but there was only about like 50 or 60 of them. So it wasn't too big of an issue, I guess. So I know that you know what it probably was? They probably couldn't get that union money to pay people to be out there. Maybe it was just the people who were unpaid out there. Maybe that's why they had such low numbers. Then again, it was a nice Friday as well. You know, near the end of the summer, could have been people just wanting to enjoy the weather, and I don't really blame them, to be honest. But
are there all kinds of people out there? I mean, like we heard from I forget the guy's organizer's name now. What's his name? El Sheikh.
Camille El Sheikh. Yep.
Camille El Sheikh. Yeah, he said there's people like we got Muslims, we've got Jewish people coming out, we've got people of all colors and cultures and beliefs. And was it like that?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. There's a number of Muslim families. Yeah, diverse backgrounds. Sure. You
don't seem encouraged by it. I mean, I'm looking at your face and you're like, I don't know. Maybe it could have been bigger.
Of course it could have been bigger. Of course it could always be bigger. But what I love about what Camille is doing with this is that he's looking at the long term, and things could have been better, and he's learning from his mistakes, and he's gonna improve it for next time. What's important is that, like I said, the people there have the fire and they have the passion, and they're focused on the long term. They realize that it's a long term fight, and they have that in mind. So they're not just doing these short bursts of energy. Like I said, that they are building something that's going to be something to be reckoned with. And I brought this up on an earlier conversation, which is, there's not many organizations that are truly resisting what's going on. There are people who profit off of it and sensationalize it, Rebel News and maybe to a lesser extent True North, but it's like, who is actually meaningfully pushing back against this to a successful result? Because let's face it, I have this little organization called savefreespeech.ca, which I started a few months ago. What about the climate change issue? Do you think there's a few climate change organizations that support left-wing parties and far left parties? There's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of them. Name any other issue. Name the transgender indoctrination issue. There's Egal Canada. You have, Pride this, Pride that. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of organizations that are professionals, that have their own board members, that have their own academics working for them. We need to start building that same infrastructure on our side, on our beliefs, on what we believe in. And here's the benefit, guys. Here's the great part. We have the truth on our side. We have righteousness on our side. So
well, that is true, Greg. But I mean, as we build brick by brick, as you say, I think that's fantastic. First of all, I don't want to sit here and sound like I'm poo-pooing on it, because I'm not. I mean, we need people doing this stuff, but we are in a race. And every time we see a plan, Maggie pointed this out last night, Agenda 2030, Plan 2050. Maybe if it's 2050, if we can, push back on them enough that they have to keep putting back their plans and anger them, and cut by death by 1,000 cuts, or just act like a swarm of mosquitoes on them or something, and we continue to be able to push back on them, maybe we'll have the time to gather the foundation so that we can fight back. But I do really think that what you're doing is important, and what Maggie is doing is important. And I had a guy called Chet Chisholm on the other night from Antigonish, Nova Scotia, who is exposing what the government there knew about these shots while they were still saying publicly, oh yeah, safe and effective, you got to get yours. They knew what kind of damage these things were causing. And people are now, I find anyway, getting more courage to come out and say these things publicly. And they are doing the work to gather this information through FOIPOPs, freedom of information requests and whatnot. And I think it's great, but do we have the time?
I don't think, and this might sound weird, we need to almost be illogical in the way that we look at this. We need to look at the long-term plan, of course, but if we worry too much about time, then we're probably going to start to get overwhelmed with fear. Of course, we can have a timeline, but I like to use the comparison of these globalist crazies. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Shadow, this statement is so delusional and crazy, but that is why they're successful, because it's not logical for them to accomplish that at all. They would have to undermine every document, constitution, Charter of Rights.
That's what they're doing.
But it's because they have this insane, delusional, illogical approach to how they try to achieve their goals. They don't care about the rules. They don't care about the timeline. They say, we have this insane goal, this insane conviction, and we are going to try to accomplish that by any means necessary. And we need to start doing the same thing. And it might be a little illogical. It might, I rely on my own personal faith more and more as a Christian to be like, you know what? I don't care about the details. God will figure out the details. This is what we need to do. I need to stop Bill C-63 by any means necessary. Yeah, I don't have that. There's only so much time I have. They might try to pass it, in this next session when they get back into Parliament. Who knows? But I'm not worried about those details. All I know is that I have a conviction. I have a goal that I want to accomplish, and maybe people think it's delusional, but I don't care. We need this kind of like almost like zealotry and sort of big picture thinking in order to actually accomplish things. And you might say, well, that's crazy. That's what our enemies are doing, and that's why they're successful. There was some probably homosexual freak years ago who said, 10 years from now, we're going to get conservative politicians in a struggle session to agree that trans women are women. Just you wait. Like them saying that 10 years ago is crazy. But look what's happening, Shadow. This delusional person with this crazy goal pushed forward with their insane plan, and they actually accomplished it. We need to start doing the same thing. And it might sound illogical, but we need to start being a little bit of a illogical in terms of like our convictions and
Our
just
goals,
like really
yeah.
driving forward and not worrying about the details so much.
Let me ask you this. One more thing before we get back to savefreespeech.ca. I want to show people the website and how they can donate in just a couple of minutes. And this is going to be an opinion question. This is not going to be because people like Trudeau and his minions in the cabinet and other certain provincial leaders, let's just say, do you think they actually believe the shit they're shoveling when it comes to the trans stuff, when it comes to the climate change stuff, when it comes to anything? Do you think do they have the courage of their convictions, or are they just spouting rhetoric?
I mean, who cares, man? They signed a deal with the devil. F them. Like I don't even care.
Matter?
Why does it matter? The point is that like they are the enemy. They are bad people for doing what they're doing.
The reason I ask is because when you have the courage of your convictions, that means that you will do anything. You'll go through wall after wall after wall to get your job done. Like us, right? I mean, you and I do what we do. We do this for the right reasons. Are we being rewarded? Yeah, I think we probably have enough money to keep the lights on every month, but it's not like we sometimes don't lose sleep at night because of that as well. But these guys, is it just, they're just getting paid and so they're just going through the motions, or do they actually have those convictions inside? Because if they do, then it's going to be a good fight. If they don't, we're going to walk on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, to answer the question more seriously, my cynical approach is that, we're motivated by truth and by righteousness and what's really right. I think there are some people who are, liberal MPs who are naive and think they're doing the right thing. I think when the lower you go on the totem pole, there's a lot of more people who are genuinely brainwashed or deceived and think they're doing the right thing. I think there's a lot of that. But yeah, when you go up to the top, I think you're running into sociopaths. I think you're running into people who want to care about power above everything, care about money above everything. People might be blackmailed to do certain things and to say certain things or else. Like, if you really want to go there, who knows how deep that rabbit hole goes? Epstein Island. You know what I mean? Like it's and this is part of the reason why I don't really care. The fact of the matter is what's not to like be too mocking towards you, but it's like, what about the heart of our enemies who are trying to destroy us? Like, could they be the Grinch and could their heart grow 2 sizes that day?
No, I'm not thinking that that's going to happen. It's just like, how tough a fight is this going to be? I mean, Jagmeet Singh has already tried to challenge 2 guys to fights this week. Who knows what the hell's going on in Ottawa?
Yeah. And when it comes to that, the fact of the matter is like, the important part is we need to win. We need to win the cultural battle. We need to win the rhetoric battle, the strategy battle, all of that. And they're strong because they have the institutions on their side, because they have the budget, the propaganda on their side. And we need to outsmart them when it comes to using the tools and the tactics that we have, whether it's, just live streams like this and online communication. And we need to be clever. And that's why we really need to look at the long term, because like I said, although that they have all this stuff, they have the budget, they have the propaganda, they have the institutions, they're also sloppy because they're lying all the time. If our despair and the end of our way of life was inevitable, they wouldn't need all this propaganda. They wouldn't need to constantly come on TV and try to convince us and try to like systematically smear every single one of you who is trying to speak up. They're terrified of us. They're terrified of conversations like this. They're terrified of charismatic people who make sense just saying the truth out loud. I said this today. I got on stage at the demonstration today, and I said, it is now a radical act to stand up and step forward and calmly say, trans women are women. No, they're not. That's like a radical, like revolutionary act now. And that's his
It's crazy.
but that really goes to show how brittle their rule is, when all it takes is one person to say, yeah, 2 + 2 is 4. No, the sky is blue. A man is a man and a woman is a woman. And yeah, that's why I'm really not just focused on the legislation of Bill C-63 to save free speech, but like I've realized we just got to start encouraging one another to actually speak up and use our freedom of speech. Throw this fear out the window, because it's not going to help us get out of this situation. Pierre Poilievre thinks, hey, if I'm just nice with the media, then we'll be able to turn this country around. But in my opinion, that's just giving into the fear and setting us up to have bills like Bill C-63 pass.
So how much do you need to make this thing happen, brother? Like, I see the donate button here up in the upper right corner of the website. I know you've got an award-winning filmmaker who is working on this documentary with you. And I know that your goal is to get it out sometime early next year. So what's it going to take to make this thing fly?
Yeah, so we've already been researching and writing this for over a year. We've had a script, we've recorded a bunch of the narration, and now we're bringing in the big guns. We're bringing in an award-winning filmmaker, documentarian, to really weave it into a story that can be, broadcast ready and be put on streaming services and everything. And in total, for just the documentary, that is going to be $40,000. To have the documentary and like a healthy marketing budget that will reach across Canada with, screening events and like promotion on social media, paid ads on social media, that would be an additional $20,000. So we've broken down that budget. If you click on the donate page, it goes to our Give, Send, Go fundraiser. But we've broken down the budget into, the 3 different milestones. $20,000 is going to cover the actual pre-production and the production. The next $20,000 is going to make sure that we can make it broadcast ready with the editing. And then the final $20,000 would be a bonus to really market it and to make sure that it reaches as many people as possible, even beyond outside of Canada. So, but there's a breakdown of the donate page there if people want to check that out.
All right, brother. Thank you for coming on tonight. Really appreciate you taking the time. Good job in Ottawa today. Savefreespeech.ca. You guys get on there. Check out that clip that Greg has already put together. I played it on the show Wednesday night. You can go watch it on my show or go to the website. That would probably be the best. That is the best thing you can do. And read exactly what he's taken the time to put down and inform us, because it's very important that we fight back on this. Free speech, without free speech, that's it. They take that away from us, and we can't fight back. Thank you, Greg, for coming on tonight. Appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much, Shadow. It's always a pleasure. Thank you. Absolutely.
Greg Wycliffe, you guys, from Ottawa tonight on the show. We still have more show for you all access members on shadowdavis.com. Oh, God. Wab Kinew. Excuse me. Wab Kinew is the premier of Manitoba, and he just fired one of his MLAs. Now, you can't kick an elected official out of office, but you can kick him out of caucus. Why did Wab Kinew kick out one of his caucus members in Winnipeg? And what's happened since then? It's actually quite amazing. Remember, I was predicting that Wab Kinew was going to be the national NDP leader in the next few months because Jagmeet Singh is kind of losing it. And I thought for sure that they would look at and remember too, the federal and provincial NDP parties, they're all tied together under one big tent, right? Like, according to the constitution of the party, the leader of the NDP technically is the boss of any NDP leader or premier provincially across the country. And I thought for sure Jagmeet Singh was going to go down in flames, considering that he does not seem to be able to get any traction at all for the NDP. And now this week, he's gotten himself almost into 2 different fights, one with Pierre Poilievre and another with a guy who just happened to be yelling some, unflattering stuff at him a couple of nights ago as he was walking to his car in the Parliament Hill parking lot. But Wab Kinew has got himself into trouble once again. We're going to tell you exactly what happened with Wab Kinew and how it could affect him. Also, the Bank of Canada, the Central Bank of Canada, made an announcement yesterday. We'll tell you exactly what that is. And remember, we were telling you about the ABC whistleblower. Now, this is a person who works inside of ABC News who claimed that ABC News was working with the Kamala Harris campaign to feed her all of the answers to the questions they were going to ask during the debate last week with Donald Trump, or 2 weeks ago with Donald Trump. And also that she did, in fact, have some kind of listening device in her ear. Well, that whistleblower, there's more news to do with him or her, and we're going to tell you about that. Plus, we told you last night that there were 5 different, according to Representative Matt Gaetz, Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz out of Florida, he said there were 5 different assassination teams on U.S. soil trying to put the hit on Donald Trump. That's what he reported. A U.S. congressman said that. There is more on that story. We're going to get to that in the extension as well. So if you're not an all-access member, maybe you want to be now. Go to shadowdavis.com, SHADOEDAVIS.com. Sign up and catch the extension, which is coming up in just about 2 minutes. For the rest of you, I will catch you Monday night at 8 o'clock Central for another Shadow at Night live stream. I love you all. I appreciate you all, and I will see you soon. Have a great weekend. I will talk to you later. Bye for now.